When I think of sequels, I think of games like Doom Eternal, Portal 2, and Half-Life 2. All of these games take the original and expand on them tenfold. There is one game I don't think of though, and that's Metro Last Light. Metro Last Light was a sequel that came out 3 years after Metro 2033. It's more of a continuation than a whole new game, kinda like the episodes that came out after Half-Life 2. It's almost a direct continuation of Metro 2033, and it adds new enemies, weapons, areas, and mechanics to Metro as a whole. It also doubles down on a lot of the original game's mechanics that ended up being mostly irrelevant. But this game definitely does not start off with a bang. When I beat Metro 2033, I got the canon ending. Kinda. In the ending that I got, Miller dies to a monster. But then he's alive when I started Metro Last Light. It isn't that big of an issue, it's just an issue in general with games that have multiple endings. The same thing happens with the next game, but I won't get into it because these games are very worth playing, and I don't want to spoil them. Even with the endings being confusing, they still double down on the story. The story isn't much more interesting than the first game, but what makes the story amazing is that you really feel like a part of it. You have some choices to make throughout this game, like this is Minecraft story mode or something.
It's very bad, but you're right. Killing is worse.
You have simple choices like killing or knocking out an enemy, and more difficult ones that actually affect the overall story. When these choices are presented to you, it can be a little overwhelming. This game is more cinematic than the first, having some cool scenes that you're still playing in while they happen. Some of them you're just looking around in, but some of them you get to actively play in. I wish more games would do this kind of cinematic scenes, but they're becoming more like interactive movies by the $1 million. Some of these scenes end up being just normal cutscenes, but they make up for it by being introductions for bosses. Metro is the last game series I would expect to have boss fights. They remind me of Resident Evil bosses, and they only show up a couple times. You've got the classic guy who runs into things until he dies, and a mother of all mutated rats, and a water monster. The water monster is definitely the best out of the three, because there's some actual build-up to him compared to the other ones. It ends up making the actual fight feel more satisfying. Compared to Metro 2033, there's a lot more surface time in Metro Last Light. The game offers some more open areas compared to the previous one. They can get a little confusing at times, but they're still a nice refresher from the tunnel setting. I'm excited to see where they take this idea in future games. For some of these areas, they introduce new enemies. You've got redditor crabs, disgusting fish monsters that spit at you.
Ooh, ugly as hell. But they're good eating, especially with beer.
And all of the enemies from the last game make a return. You also have new weapons to kill them with. New assault rifles and LMGs, automatic shotguns, a shotgun pistol, and sniper rifles. Even though you have more guns, stealth is still an option. Metro has some of the most interesting stealth I've ever seen in a game. You have all the basic mechanics, but you can also turn and shoot out lights, and you have stuff like silencers that add to it as well. Overall, Metro Last Light is a worthy continuation of its predecessor. It's not a game-changing, revolutionary sequel like Doom Eternal, but it didn't need to be. It's just more Metro. And at the end of the day, that's fine for me. I rate Metro Last Light 3 generic boss fights out of 5.